Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this class. This class or this lecture is number 6, and in this lecture we are going to talk about grammar. We have already finished talking about some essential parts of linguistics, such as phonetics, phonology, syntax and morphology. We have spent an extensive, ample time explaining the differences between these components. And today we are supposed to talk about grammar, which is also a very important part, a very fundamental and essential part of linguistics. So what does grammar mean? What does grammar mean? That's a core question. In fact, grammar is the process of describing the structure in a language and rule out all the ungrammatical sequences. So it's about, or it has two main functions. It should describe the structure for any language, whether it is a language, whether this language is English or any other languages. The second function of grammar is ruling out the ungrammatical sequences. So it can tell us, or it should tell the learners what grammatical sequences are. So each language has its own grammar, without any doubt. For example, Arabic has its own grammar, English has its own grammar, French has its own grammar. So these different types of grammar, okay, are special. I mean, we can't say that two languages have the same grammar. There are differences among the grammar of every language. Each language has different ways of forming grammatical phrases and sentences. This is what I have just mentioned. So, for example, in Arabic we can construct phrases and sentences in a different way than forming phrases and sentences in English, and etc. So, whenever we talk about grammar, the first thing that comes to our mind is traditional grammar. So, traditional grammar refers to grammar which has a long history. So studying grammar in this way, from a traditional point of view, is a very old. It has a long tradition. Since there was a well-established grammatical description of Latin based on earlier analysis of Greek, it seemed appropriate to adapt existing categories from this description and apply them in the analysis of the newer languages such as English. That means some grammatical description and some grammatical sequences, some grammar or some parts of grammar have already been adapted from Latin, from Greek, okay, and then they were brought into English. Part of this inheritance, a number of terms used in describing those basic components known as parts of speech, and we are going to see what does parts of speech in the couple just in the next slide, and how they connect to each other in terms of agreement. And this is very, very important. Agreement in grammar is very important. We should always take into account the rule of agreement. So that's what we mean by parts of speech, okay? The parts of speech which have inherited from Latin, such as nouns, articles, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, prepositions, pronouns, conjunctions. So regarding the parts of speech, we have 8 types of parts of speech. Let me repeat them. Nouns, al-asma, articles, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, prepositions, pronouns, and conjunctions. And now I come to the second part of this point, which is agreement. What do we mean by agreement? More categories are including number, person, tense, and voice and gender. So when it comes to number, okay, we have to decide whether it's a singular or a plural. When it comes to a person, I have to decide whether the referent is a first person, second person, or a third person. When it comes to tense, I have to decide whether it is a present tense or past tense. When it comes to voice, is it passive or active voice? When it comes to gender, we have to decide whether it is a female or a male. Okay, so these are the main categories of grammar. Again, we have number, we have person, we have tense, we have voice and gender. Okay, let's come to grammatical gender. Grammatical gender is based on the noun, okay, rather than on sex. Okay, it depends on noun. This is very important. Some languages have grammatical genders, which are masculine and feminine, whereas in some other languages, they may not necessarily have this kind of category, okay? So they don't have grammatical genders, okay? So they can refer to male and females using the same word, okay? Whereas other languages such as Arabic, such as French, okay, we have what is known as grammatical genders to indicate masculine and feminine. Nouns are classified according to their gender class, and articles and adjectives have different form to agree with the gender of the noun. Okay, so if the noun is a plural, okay, we have to choose the right gender class, and I have to choose the right article. Let's look at this example, and this example is from traditional analysis. So in some languages other than English, okay, the descriptive categories characterize verb forms. For example, in Latin grammar, which is not in English, okay, when I say, for example, I love, okay, and when I say she loves, you love, they love, just look at the verb love. Just look at it and just look at how this verb has changed just because of the article. So when it comes, for example, to she, okay, we changed amno, okay, to amas. Okay, same thing with you, because the referent here is, you know, a third person. When it comes to they, okay, it refers, okay, it's different from you. So amant. So we can see a change. We can see a change in the verb form, which would characterize different descriptive categories for the same verb. Okay, now we come to a very important distinction between the two types of grammar, which are the prescriptive approach of grammar and descriptive approach of grammar. The prescriptive approach of grammar argues that grammar should be dealt with as a set of rules for the proper use of a language. An example is like, you must end a sentence with a proposition. Okay? So according to this rule, we might say, who did you go with? Who did you go with? And this sentence will be corrected by teachers into with whom did you go. Why? Simply because according to this approach, or from a prescriptive grammar point of view, we shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition, which is the or which is with. So we should replace, or we should take the preposition with and take it to the beginning, or to the we move it to the beginning of sentence. So we should say with whom did you go, rather than who did you go with. Okay, so again, from a prescriptive approach grammar, those people who support this approach might say that this sentence is incorrect, and the correct form is with whom did you go. What about the second approach of grammar, which is descriptive, which has an opposite point of view? This view argues that grammar rules of Latin grammar didn't seem to fit some languages such as English. Okay, so they have, or this approach has a different point of view. Accordingly, descriptive approach was adopted, which is based on collecting samples of the language people who are interested in and attempting to describe the regular structures of that language as it was used. As it was used, not according to some view of how it should be used. What does this mean? It means that when it comes to this sentence, the descriptive people, or those who in support of this approach, will say that both sentences are correct. Okay? Because simply they don't stick to a particular form of grammar which has been inherited from Latin or Greek, from Latin. And they focus on how it was used, not necessarily according to how it should be used. Okay. For this point, for the descriptive approach, we can, or it can be subcategorized into a number of types. The first type of what is known as the descriptive approach grammar is called structural analysis. And this type of descriptive approach investigates the distribution of forms in a language. It involves the use of test frames, which can be empty slots in them. For example, when we see a sentence like this, the space or blanket make a lot of noise. What do you think? What should be, or what is the correct word that should be placed in this part? We can choose forms such as car, child, etc. to produce a grammatical sentence. Not someone, for example, or a car. So I can't say a car. We'll simply say that this sentence is incorrect. Okay, or I can't say that someone make. Okay? So as a result, because these forms, okay, which we call them test frames, because of these frames fit in the same test frame, same grammatical category, they can be described as nouns. So after that we will understand, and we'll get a clue that a noun should be placed in this part. So I can say the car, for example, the car make a lot of noise, or the child makes a lot of noise, etc. So I should add S here for the third person singular. Okay. Okay, sorry for this. So I can just simply say the car makes a lot of noise, or the child makes a lot of noise, rather than using ungrammatical forms such as someone or a car. The second type of descriptive approach of grammar, or the second type of descriptive approach grammar, is called constituent analysis, and which means it's designed to show how small constituent or how small components go together to form larger constituents, how words go together to form phrases. For example, an old man, or the wedding, to the wedding. In the first phrase, when I say an old man, okay, this is a noun phrase. The wedding is also a noun phrase. To the wedding, this is a prepositional phrase. A proper noun such as John, or any proper noun, yes, such as any names like John, I don't know, etc. And the proper and the pronouns such as him or her, etc. can be used as noun phrases and fill the same constituent as longer phrases such as the women. So I can replace the women, okay, with she. So I can replace this phrase, okay, with a proper noun. I can replace it with the article, with the pronoun she. Okay. Same thing with an old man. I can replace it with he. Okay. So the pronoun he can be replaced instead of an old man. Let's look at this sentence. The dog loved the girl. Okay. Here we have what is known as labeled and bracketed sentences. The word, and as you notice here, in this sentence, we can spot three different levels. We have what is known as the word level, and the phrase level, and the sentence level. The word, okay, is the smallest level, and the sentence level is the largest level in grammar. So for the first level, which is the word level, we have the article the, okay, and we have the noun dog. Okay, we have also the phrase level. By combining the article and the noun dog, okay, we can say the dog. So we consider this as a phrase level. Or loved the girl, this is also a phrase level. So the dog, it can be considered as noun phrase. Love the girl, okay, this phrase is considered as a verbal phrase. Let's move to the larger, or the larger level, which is called the sentence level. When we look at the sentence, all of the sentence, the dog loved the girl, okay, this is a sentence level, okay, because here we are dealing with sentence rather than a phrase or a word, okay. So we call this labeled sentences or bracketed sentences, because we label different words into, we label different words and we give them certain labels, okay, just to identify the different levels for different parts of the sentence. So the larger brackets indicate, or it should include the smaller brackets. When it comes to hierarchical organization, according to this organization, the sentence, which as we have already seen and in the previous presentations, in the previous classes, in the previous lectures, the sentence S indicates sentence. So this simple is higher than and contains the noun phrase, okay, and sometimes it may contain also more than a noun phrase. So it might, as we have just seen in this sentence, the sentence has two parts, this sentence has two phrases, the noun phrase and the verbal phrase. So the noun phrase is higher than and may contain the noun as well. Okay? So here we have a hierarchical system. We have a hierarchical organization. We start with the larger part heading to the smallest. So we start with the sentence, and then we move to the phrase, and finally we end up with words, or with nouns, or with words. Yes. So you might raise we can raise a very important question now. What is the rule of grammar? So the aim of this type of analysis, okay, which is part of grammar, is to draw a complicated looking diagrams in order to impress our friends. It enables us to describe how English sentences are put together as combinations of phrases that in turn are combinations of words. We can then look at the descriptions of sentences in other languages such as Gaelic, Japanese, Spanish, Arabic. Okay? You mention any language that you want to describe what structural differences exist among different languages. Okay? So this is the rule of grammar. The rule of grammar is to discover what structural differences exist among languages. Now I can come to the end of my lecture. I hope you enjoy it and wish you all the best, and see you in the next lecture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.